Open Minds Media.
Indiana County 911. My brother's gone. Can you be a little more specific, sir? He took my brother. Who took him? I don't know who took him. I don't know what. Sir, take a breath. Explain to me what happened.
And I looked out and there was this big red blinking UFO.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Something's going on.
They're not dogs, they're not coyotes. What could it be, right?
I had an encounter with a skunk ape, and it completely altered the course of my life.
I found a skull. Are you guys going to want to come film this?
Put him out.
I just see it.
Sightings of a UFO hovering over a barn.
Millie woke up from a dream, and when I went into the bedroom, she said there's a monster on the wall.
They saw that the creature had run through a barbed wire fence, that they were able to obtain hairs. They sent the hairs to their lab, and it came back as an unknown creature.
Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin.
What's up, bizarreencounters, and welcome back to the most bizarre show on the internet. It's me, Alex Jones, and it's my honor to announce two of my favorite podcasters out there. Please welcome the infamous beast of the Northeast, whose theories never cease, the one they call Shayn Swat, and the hurricane in the sheets, whose bad daddiness cannot be beat, the big bad blue daddy himself, Orin Felix.
Gotta chill.
Now, boys, you'll be proud and give the good audience out there a banger of an episode. Alex, out.
Well, thanks, Alex, for that awesome intro, man. He hit me up, man. He sent me this email. He said, you know what? You guys are my favorite podcast. I got to do an intro for the show, and I got that. So
I'm just kind of speechless. You have just rendered me absolutely speechless. I have no idea what to say. I mean, you said you had a special surprise. I was not expecting it to be AI Alex Jones. But
hey, man, you are the hurricane, the hurricane in the sheets.
Now, did Alex write that himself, or did you do that?
Oh, he specifically wrote it. He called you the hurricane in the sheets, whose bad or big bad boo daddiness cannot be beat. So you got to make him proud, man. Like he said, make me proud and give the audience a banger of a show, man.
All right, we will try to give the people what they want.
So if anybody didn't catch that, I am the one that they call Shayn Squatch.
And I am the big bad boo daddy, Orin Felix. All right, so our next episode of Bizarre Inquiries, our YouTube live show, will be May 1st. That's a Thursday. It should be tomorrow at the time of the posting of this episode. It's going to be 7:15 Eastern on the Open Minds Media YouTube page. So you guys be sure to submit questions, videos, articles, anything like that you want us to inquire about. And also be sure to join in the chat. We've had some really good participation the past couple months, and it's a lot of fun to talk to you guys as we're doing the episode. So you guys make sure you do that as well.
And as an extension to that, if you guys haven't caught it the past couple weeks, I'm going to remind you guys every single episode, if you guys want to catch Bizarre Encounters live, we record live on the Open Minds Media YouTube every single Thursday, generally between 7 and 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys are always welcome to hop in, and I'm kind of hoping to do a thing where we have guests on. Towards the end, we do some questions from the listeners. So if you guys see that we have a guest on that you might be really interested in asking some questions to, you guys can pop into the chat and you guys can contribute to the show a little bit. So hopefully we can keep expanding this community, bring more of you guys into the fold, and you guys can mark it on your calendars. Every single Thursday, if you guys want to pop in, again, between 7 and 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And just a quick update, the Patreon is still under construction, so you guys keep your eyes out for updates as far as that's concerned.
And the last little bit of updates, hopefully I will be dropping it this coming weekend, but I have two brand new merch designs that I've been working on for you guys. The first one, I'll let you guys go on and check it out on the pages, but the premise of it says break the mind control. And then the other one is this cheerful little picture where you have this awesome little alien, opening up his third eye, smoking a little J, sitting next to a campfire with Sasquatch. I think you guys are definitely going to enjoy these new designs, and hopefully you guys in the process of that can go and check out the Open Minds Media merch store, shop around over there, see if there's any other awesome designs that you like, because they're not just all podcast designs. I generally do a lot of other stuff besides that. And I guess as a quick extension from that, I am doing a t-shirt giveaway for inquiries. So if anybody wants some information on that, wants to possibly win a free t-shirt from the Open Minds Media merch store, go on and check out the Open Minds Media Instagram page and Facebook page, and you guys can get some more information on that.
And if you guys want to be a guest on the show or get up with us for any reason whatsoever, Shayn, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can call or text into the hotline, whatever is easier for you guys. And you guys don't have to be discouraged because I will not answer when you guys call directly. You guys will end up leaving a voicemail. But that number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys didn't happen to catch that, it is available down in the show description.
And as always, all this shit we've mentioned is in the link tree in the show description.
And getting into today's topic, this is one that Orin has had sitting on the back burner for a little while. And for anybody that caught the last episode of Bizarre Inquiries, we were talking about it a little bit, I believe, when we were talking about the pyramid stuff. So I guess I will let you kind of leeway and let them know what we're diving into today, man.
Yeah, so like you said, this is one that I've kind of had cooked up for a little while. We took a break from doing this one so we could do the Solway Firth Spaceman a couple weeks ago. That was one I was really excited to do. But anyway, we're going to jump into the Coral Castle mystery. Okay.
Rick gets really, really, really upset about when you say the word coral. So just look out for this episode, man, because if you say it, Rick is probably just going to have to scream in the background. That's just how it's going to go, man.
Is this a Rick and Morty thing?
No, it's a Walking Dead thing, actually.
Oh, okay.
It's supposed to be Carl, but it sounds like coral, so I figured it would be fitting to throw some enthusiasm for the word coral today.
Okay, well, Walking Dead, not my thing. So.
Just as a preface, though, just in case, just in case it gets a bit ridiculous, I'm just going to say this one right in the beginning.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm out of control. I apologize for that.
We'll just get that one out of the way right in the beginning. And without further ado, Orin, I'll let you get into it.
Okay, you got any more little sound bites you want to do, or are we good to jump in?
Oh, I got a lot more, but I got to wait for the right opportunities.
Okay, I'm eagerly anticipating.
I had to wait for the first time you said the word coral, and that was part of the excitement for it. So I got a few more. They're on the back burner, my friend.
All right. So without further ado, Coral Castle is this like megalithic site. It's located near Homestead, Florida, which is like 35 miles south of Miami. So like real South Florida. The site consists of over 260 carved limestone structures. And some of these things weigh like nearly 30 tons. Coral Castle was built over the course of like several decades by this guy named Edward Leedskalnin. And since Leedskalnin doesn't really roll off the tongue, I'm just going to call him Ed from here on out.
And we can bring up a picture of Ed if anybody is curious what this gentleman looks like.
Yep, that's what he looks like right there. Just that little man in the bowler hat.
Generic late 1800s, early 1900s gentleman.
Yes. Yeah, and we're going to talk about him a little bit more here in a second. But some people have claimed that Coral Castle was actually built using, quote, reverse magnetism or supernatural abilities. So this one is going to get a little bizarre. Maybe not as bizarre as some of our past episodes. But anyway, so getting back to Ed.
Sorry, Mr. Bean gets excited about magic.
Okay, I wasn't sure what we were doing there.
It's Mr. Bean.
Okay. So anyway, Ed was born on January 12th, 1887 in Riga, Latvia, and he came from a family of stonemasons, which is kind of interesting. And his grandfather allegedly actually built a like full-ass castle in their homeland of Latvia, and that's going to kind of come up here in a little bit. But Ed, it's been said, only received a 4th grade education, but he was taught stonemasonry by his father. And this next bit's pretty wild. When Ed was 26 years old, his 16-year-old fiance, who he referred to as his Sweet 16, which isn't creepy at all, broke off their engagement on the night before their wedding. So that's going to come up again here in a minute.
Daddy, chill.
Yeah. Daddy Ed needed to chill a little bit.
He needs to chill the fuck out a lot.
So anyway, after this happened, Ed was like heartbroken, and he immigrated to the United States. And he arrived in New York City on April 7th of 1912. And soon after that, he relocated to the Pacific Northwest, and he started working as like an axe handle maker. So in the winter of 1922, Ed was diagnosed with a terminal case of tuberculosis, and he was given only like 6 months to live. And so he moved to Florida City, Florida, due to kind of just like the warmer climates and the weather down there. It was supposed to be like better for tuberculosis than the dreary Pacific Northwest.
Weird thing with tuberculosis, like, remember the Mammoth Caves were actually used as like a place where they used to do tuberculosis treatments? Like, I find it so strange that a lung disease that you can't breathe, but let's put you in a really like wet, humid place. Like, I don't know, I guess it makes sense, but
well, Florida, that's another wet, humid place.
Ain't that the truth? At least you get some of the warmth with it, though. I feel like Mammoth Caves is kind of hit or miss depending on the season.
Yeah, and you're underground.
Yeah, not to mention that. I mean, who knows what other debris and other shit might be floating around down there.
So,
on top of
anyway,
other tuberculosis from other people. So a lot of tuberculosis down there.
When Ed got to Florida, he purchased an acre of land, and he paid only $12 for this acre of land in South Florida. So, man, if you got some South Florida real estate in the 1920s, you're good to go, man. Like,
yeah, talk about
what kind of return on investment is that?
Right? That's like that generational thing, man, where you'll see like these families now that have like this giant piece of property and they have like multiple houses on it and they all live on it. And then you start asking them like, hey, like, how did you obtain this piece of property? And they're like, oh yeah, my grandfather like 100 years ago just pretty much walked up and said, this is my land. And we've been living here since. Like, holy shit, man. I wish we still had the same land claim laws as back then, man.
Yeah, but you still got to pay property taxes now. So they kind of screw you one way or the other.
That's true.
But anyway, so Ed claimed that through like some kind of combination of magnetism and like the sun's energy.
No, you fucking can't. It's science.
He was able to like miraculously cure his tuberculosis. And so once he got cured, he began construction on what would ultimately end up being like his life's work. And it was a monument that was to be dedicated to his Sweet 16.
And what was it called?
Well, Coral. Right, wasn't sure what you were going for there.
I was just wanted you to say the name again.
All right.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break.
But in the meantime, don't forget to follow Bizarre Encounters on Instagram and Facebook, and don't forget to check out Open Minds Media on YouTube and TikTok. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a comment or spark up a conversation. We love getting to know you guys.
And now back to the show.
All right, so jumping back in, we're going to talk a little bit about Ed. So throughout his life, he published like numerous pamphlets on a variety of subjects. He talked about magnetism a lot. Like magnetism was like his core thing.
Dude, I found when just looking up random pictures of him, there's a few different covers of these books that he wrote. That's like magnetic current. I don't know. I feel like I kind of want to copy this book now. Just saying.
Well, we're going to talk about that again in a minute. But some of the other things that he wrote about were like more, I don't know, like everyday issues, not quite so scientific. And one of the subjects he referred to as moral education. And these are fucking wild. So he's got some like just crazy ass opinions about like young girls and women.
Oh my God.
And in one of these, he states that, quote, girls should be kept pure and that boys are primarily a soiling influence upon them. And that, quote, as everybody knows, this is my favorite part. He just begins this like batshit opinion with, as everybody knows, like it's just this fact. But anyway, as everybody knows, there is nothing good that can come to a girl from a fresh boy. When a girl is 16 or 17 years old, she is as good as she ever will be. But when a boy is 16 years old, he is then fresher than in all his stages of development. To allow such a fresh thing to spoil a girl, it is wrong every time. Which to me just sounds like him justifying being engaged to a 16-year-old, but that's just me.
Or he's an incel because he didn't have his chance with his 16-year-old, so he's like, you know what? Women are great, but they should just exist over there where we don't touch them.
Well, he goes on to say, and this is even funnier in my opinion, in case a girl's mama thinks that there is a boy somewhere who needs experience, then she herself could pose as an experimental station for that fresh young boy to practice on, and so save the girl. Nothing can hurt her anymore. She has already gone through all the experience that can be gone through, and so in her case, it would be all right. And hey, it's kind of hard to argue with Ed there. I mean, if some young boy is interested in your daughter, I mean, you just fuck him instead.
Make it so your daughter won't want him anyways. I mean, at that point, you're just getting sloppy seconds. So, I mean, two problems solved in one swift move.
Well, like he said, it would be all right. So, anyway,
you better hope she's a cougar.
Bit of Ed's his moral education. So I don't know if that's an education you would want to receive, but anyway, there it is.
I mean, it sounds like he's a couple steps away from writing a manifesto, if I'm being honest with you.
He needs a definite daddy chill.
Daddy chill.
I'll give him one.
All right, so some of his more scientific pamphlets, it said that they could contain encoded messages regarding his research and techniques. And some people have also suggested that Sweet 16, could refer not just to his fiance, but also to, quote, the numerological and or scientific relevance of the number 16 to his research and theories. So we're going to go into depth about Coral Castle here in a minute, but he spent 30 years of his life building this thing. But in November of 1951, he suffered a stroke and he died 28 days later due to a kidney infection, and he was 64 years old.
Well, at least the 16-year-olds are safe, right?
Well, like you said, as everybody knows. So,
as everybody clearly knows.
All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual Coral Castle aspect of Coral Castle.
Wait, what was that word again?
Coral. All right. So after he purchased this plot of land in Florida City, he began construction on this 2-story tall castle. So keep in mind, I said, about his grandfather building a castle back in Latvia. So castles run in the family. So after he completed this castle, he opened it up to the public, and it kind of became known locally as Ed's Place. And he charged a admission fee of 10 cents to tour the castle, and he actually led the tours himself. And whenever visitors would ask him how he was able to build all this by himself, he would allegedly answer, quote, I understand the laws of weight and leverage, and I know the secrets of the people who built the pyramids.
How the fuck did we get to Egypt?
You just had that one on deck, didn't you?
Yeah, I was waiting for that one.
Okay. So in 1936, there were plans for this subdivision to be built near his property. And so he was super secretive and private. And rather than, have this subdivision encroach upon his privacy, Ed decided that he was literally going to physically move this castle. So he ended up moving it 10 miles north to its current location near Homestead, Florida. And to do this, he kind of enlisted the help of a local farmer named Bob Biggers. And this guy owned a truck and trailer. And in regards to this whole moving process, Bob Biggers' sister later said, quote, he, meaning Ed, moved all of the rock objects alone from Florida City. He would put them on a big trailer and then have my brother Bob come and pull them to the present location. Then he would say to Bob, go on now, for I don't want anyone to bother me while I work. And it took Ed over 2 years to move the castle and reassemble it in its current location. But so apparently he tore this thing down, mysteriously moved it himself, and mysteriously put it back together himself.
You should have took some advice from Alex.
My superpower is being honest. I will eat my neighbors.
Well, see, that's the thing. He didn't want neighbors. That's why he moved his castle.
That's why he just has to eat them, like Alex said. Just eat them.
So
just fucking eat them.
Alex has chimed in, but do you have anything to add before we move on? I feel like I've kind of been talking a lot so far this episode.
Well, I just want to point out just the simple fact of we're already kind of at the point where I'm sure we're going to start breaking it down, but this guy supposedly built these rock structures by himself. And just looking at it, I understand the aspect of maybe being able to cut something once it's placed, but we're going to get into the weird aspect of it. But how the fuck did one single man move these giant stones? That is even moving into the truck. I'm sure that was a difficult task. And is there an added part to this where it mentions how they put them in the truck? Did he use whatever this secret thing is, or did they literally like use like a pulley and put him in the truck like normal because he didn't want to give out his secrets?
So it sounds to me like what happened was basically like this Bob guy would bring the truck and trailer, and then Ed would like load everything up, and then Bob would like come back and drive the truck and trailer to the new location, and then Ed would unload everything and tell him, leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered while I work. So this guy basically just like transported the shit for him, is my understanding.
So yeah, he didn't even get to see how he put this stuff on the truck. So I was hoping that there'd be an extra additional piece where like one person saw him like doing whatever he did to move these things, and then maybe you'd have like a good starting point to maybe figure this stuff out. But
well, we're going to get into a bit of speculation about that here in a minute, but so kind of jumping back in, after he moved the castle, Ed began this like decades long process of like expanding out the entire complex. And this is the complex that you've got the pictures pulled up for now, that eventually became known as Coral Castle. So at the time it was, just the castle and Ed's place and all that. And after many years, is when it became known as Coral Castle. We're going to get into the details of that later as well. But throughout the years, he built like a ton of stone structures, including a functioning sundial that accurately told the time of day, the seasons, and the solstices.
Is that this guy right here? Or is that just like a watchtower?
That might be the sun. No, I don't think that's the sundial. He also built an obelisk, which could be that, which is kind of interesting in light of like everything we talked about with obelisks when we were talking about the Freemasons. But he also built a Polaris telescope, which accurately pointed to the North Star. He built a 23-ton crescent moon, which you can see in a lot of the pictures you've got pulled up there. Yeah, that's it right there. And he also built a lot of other like astrological structures. You can kind of see in that picture you've got pulled up, Shane, to the left.
Saturn?
That's Saturn right there. So a lot of the stuff he built was like astrologically motivated, which I think is kind of interesting too.
Did this guy have links to the Freemasons? And that being asked, he said that obviously his family was like stoneworkers, and they were coming from Lafayette, and obviously like the whole Freemason thing started over on that side of the world. So like, I wonder if like his parents were involved in the Freemasons, his ancestors were. Like, in a weird way, I kind of feel like he may not have like figured this out himself, but rather may have had some family knowledge from something, because the astrological signs, and specifically making the moon and Saturn
and the obelisk. But yeah, that's something I kind of got in like theories and thoughts later. I never found anything that specifically said he or his family were part of the Freemasons, but like we said, they came from a long line of stonemasons. So I mean, it's very possible as far as I'm concerned, especially when we get into some of this other stuff.
I mean, even going off of that, I mean, even if you had like a great-great-great-grandfather that was involved, I mean, you're obviously supposed to keep the secrets within the Brotherhood, but that doesn't mean that everybody always listens to that. So, I mean, there could have been some family secrets that were Freemason secrets, and just because he wasn't involved doesn't mean that that's not the direct line where these things came from. But even just like knowing the power of that, again, it's like Saturn, like the whole concept with that, like something fascinating that I was kind of diving into lately is this whole idea that like Saturn itself is like a gas giant. So it doesn't even have like a surface that you can even go and exist on. So essentially it's just this giant destructive force, which goes into this loop about like destroying to rebuild, the whole like Shiva concept. Like, I don't know, it's just been like a weird rabbit hole I've been diving down lately. And I feel like when people use Saturn symbology specifically, like there's no other like link in my mind that they're aware of something. Because why else would people have this fascination with Saturn when it's not even a planet you can quote like go to and put your feet on, you know? Like,
well, Saturn's like really big across the occult, you know, like it shows up not just with Freemason type stuff, but like there's the whole like black cube thing with Saturn. So yeah, there's definitely something to unpack there. And kind of circling back around to one of your earlier points, even though that we haven't found anything that specifically links him to the Freemasons, it's just like almost too much of a smoking gun for me. Like this guy with stonemasonry background from Europe built this crazy thing that nobody knows how he did it. And there's these, you know, vaguely occult monuments and symbols in this park that he built, there's just too much smoke there for there not to be some sort of fire, as far as I'm concerned.
Just out of curiosity, too, I'm trying to look it up on a map. Obviously, like, the Freemasons that we know, the Illuminati, like, obviously it goes way back to, like biblical times, but the start of, like, the Freemasons themselves would have been in Bolivia. So I'm kind of curious how far Bolivia is from, which country did you say he was from again?
Latvia.
Yeah, so I'm trying to look it up on a map here.
I mean, I would think it can't be too far in the scheme of things.
No, here, I'm going to bring it up so that you can see it, too, and you can help me peek at this, because if it's not that far, I mean, again, even if it's a couple countries over, like, it's definitely within that range.
I mean, yeah, no matter what, like, it's all the same general area.
Like Lithuania, I mean, it's all, you got Eastern
There's Latvia right there. Riga, that's where this guy was from.
Where you seen that at?
Up. You see Lithuania down right there.
Okay, so
Riga, Latvia, that's where Ed was born.
There's Latvia. So, yeah, I mean, it's still like right. It's within Northern Europe.
What was the other one you were looking for?
Bolivia.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head where that's at
by like
relation,
Germany and shit. So it's like over in this area somewhere. But anyways, like I said, it's all within like the Northern Europe general area. So I mean, obviously these secret societies started spreading out from, they started spreading out in Europe and they made it all the way to the United States. So like, is it really that far off that some of these secrets wouldn't have made it up to Lithuania? I mean, it doesn't seem that far off to me. And especially,
like we talked about in our Freemason episode, they were referred to as Freemasons because they could freely travel between European countries, which the normal person could not do back in those days.
And let me point something else out that's kind of weird. So obviously this would have been, I'm assuming, within like the Soviet Union area anyway. So this all would have been like involved as the same land at that point. So I don't know how far you've dug into like the whole like secret that the Kremlin and everything might hold, as far as like they claim that they have like all this history that's been destroyed, and there's like a whole bunch of conspiracy theories that go into the reason why like we've always been after Russia to try to attack them is because they're privy to all this like weird information that goes back like way farther than we expected that might like change history and everything. So I mean, if you're somebody that's diving into these weird occult concepts and you're kind of within that area, I mean, it doesn't seem too far off that, his family, him may not have done some type of like, either one, been privy to some knowledge that people from Soviet Union were privy to, or on the flip side, if they were actually doing this like magnetic research and everything, like maybe he would have been privy to some other information that may have been in like the Kremlin. I mean, there might even be a link, not just to the Freemasons, but to whatever the secret occult information is that's coming out of Russia too.
Well, and to take it a step further, not something that I really put a ton of stock in, but that could very easily get into like Tartaria type stuff at that point. It's the same general geographic area. We're talking about, these crazy buildings that people still today don't know how they were built. So maybe there's a little nugget of something there too.
Yeah, I mean, that may even be part of it, that some of this Tartarian technology was just this understanding of like, the best way that I seem to understand the whole concept of Tartarian technology is essentially the type of stuff that like Tesla was working on. So Tesla was looking obviously into, honestly, something that doesn't seem too far off from this whole like frequency vibration concept. So, I mean, it still, again, kind of seems like it could be all within that same realm of like that Tartarian occult Victorian era type research,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, I think there's definitely something to unpack there. So kind of jumping back in, probably like the most famous structure that Ed built was a 9-ton, 8-foot-tall stone gate. And allegedly this gate was like so well balanced that you could open and close it with just like the touch of a finger.
Was it this one?
Yeah, that's it right there. So in 1986, the stone gate like just suddenly stopped working. And it took 6 men and a crane to repair it. And during the course of these repairs, they kind of figured out like what its secret was. So Ed had, quote, drilled a hole top to bottom and inserted a metal shaft. That sentence is just hilarious.
Daddy, chill.
And the rock rested on an old truck bearing. It was the rusting out of this bearing that resulted in the gate's failure to revolve. Complete with new bearings and shaft, it was set back into place on July 23rd of 1986. It failed in 2005 and was again repaired. However, it does not rotate with the same ease it once did. So here again, this guy supposedly built all this by himself, but yet it took 6 men and a crane to repair this thing. So
do you have some notes in here on like what this stuff is made out of? Because I'm assuming that this theory has already been suggested a few times, but it almost kind of looks like something he could have like almost like a concrete, you know, like something he could have like
got it
built
later
and
in the notes, but it's not actually coral. It's a type of limestone called oolite, I think is how it'd be pronounced, and it's called Coral Castle because this type of limestone, like just has like pock marks and like little holes and indentions in it that makes it look like coral. So it's not actually coral; it's limestone.
Okay, that makes sense because even on the other side too, it's like, even if he did make it out of some type of concrete, I guess I'm disproving my own idea. He still wouldn't have been able to like move it once it was all put together to even put it up in those trucks. So there's still a component of like, he couldn't have just made some concrete thing in a certain area because you'd still have to move it. So that's still the challenging part right there. But so I'm assuming this stone though naturally has all these pockets and everything. So it's not like a malleable type of concrete stone then.
Yeah, so my understanding is, and I think this is like a little later in the notes, but a lot of this limestone, he like basically quarried from the actual property. It was already there. Like the stone for the castle, I'm not sure where that came from, but like everything, all the like everything got pulled up in the pictures here, like the gate and the crescent moon, all that was basically from this oolite limestone that he quarried from the actual property.
So it all came from directly in that area. Okay, so
yeah. And even like the stone for the castle came from that like general area, and he only moved the castle a few miles. So like all this material came from a very small geographic area.
I guess it kind of disproves my whole theory right off the bat, but again, I still think that there's... I won't even get into it. I'll wait till we get into theories and stuff because I don't want to jump too far ahead. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with that bizarre stuff you crave.
But just a quick reminder, if you would like to snag some gear from this show, inquiries of our reality, or one of your favorite creatures or topics, hop on over to the Open Minds Media merch store for a wide range of designs and new drops regularly, and t-shirts for the low price of just $15.68. That's oddly specific, plus shipping.
And we're back with the high strangeness. Let's get back into it.
All right. So this newly expanded complex, Ed began referring to it as Rock Gate Park, obviously named after the big stone gate that he built. And he also opened this up to the public. And when visitors would arrive at the complex, they would ring a bell that was located at the front gate, and Ed would come down from his living quarters in the castle and lead the tours himself. And, economy's bad, inflation's bad. This time he asked for 25-cent donations. I mean, before it was just 10 cents, but I mean, he had to up that 25 cents now.
Hey man, with the times, things happen.
Limestone ain't free, even though he harvested it himself.
You know what this story is really reminiscent of is, I don't remember that. I think we were talking about it a little bit on the Hermit episode for a second, or maybe I brought it up the first time I talked to Timothy, but there was this guy who during the Depression era, he built this structure out of just a bunch of random garbage and random pieces. And he essentially built this castle type thing that he lived in out of random objects. But this seems very reminiscent of that, and almost weirdly enough, some of the hermit stories that we talked to last week, that there's generally this oh, I had my heart broken, and these guys just go off and do these weird, crazy accomplishments.
Well, and it also reminded me of, it's been a while since we talked about it, but do you remember when we talked about George Van Tassel and the Integratron?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that to me, just basically this crazy guy just goes and builds this crazy thing himself, and nobody quite knows how he did it,
Here it is. I think I found a picture of it. Just to bring this up to show everybody. Okay, I found it. All right. Screen share. Okay, so we called it Palace of Depression. But yeah, see, this dude
cheerful.
Literally took a bunch of random shit and literally built like a Depression era castle out of just random shit. Like maybe we can do an episode on this guy one day, but like I don't know, just these stories seem very like reminiscent of each other, you know?
Well, yes, especially
like even look at this damn door. Like
there you go. Yeah. But no, since we're kind of diving into more like folklore-y type stuff here recently, yeah, I think that would be a fun one to do. And like you said, a lot of correlations with this one.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we could probably find even more. Like, I know he didn't have any like giant objects and it wasn't some like feat like that, but just the concept. Like, it's fascinating, you know?
All right, so jumping back into the notes, and we have already covered a lot of this, but the vast majority of the over 1,000 tons of oolite limestone that were used to build this thing, Ed quarried it on the property himself. No mortar was used, and the stones are held together using only their own weight. And it's been said that they're so precisely aligned that no light is able to pass through the joints, which is pretty crazy when you think about it.
Sounds to me like a lot of these ancient structures, which is
again, exactly like the pyramids and shit.
Yeah, what I keep talking about with again, I think he was privy to some knowledge. I don't think he discovered something necessarily, but I think he already kind of had like a head start on this just because he had something from his family, dude. Like there's got to be something there.
Well, I'm going to save my thoughts till the end, but I'm kind of on the same page with you. All right. So Ed continued to work on the complex until his death in 1951. And after his death, the property came into the ownership of his closest living relative, but he was actually kind of like a hermit himself. He was considered like an eccentric by the community, so he really didn't have any close family or friends. And his closest living relative was a nephew in Michigan. So your neck of the woods.
Hey, there's a lot of occult history in Michigan. Just throwing that in there.
But in 1953, the property was purchased by a retired jeweler from Chicago named Julius Levin. And this guy changed the name of the complex to Coral Castle. Before that, it was still known as Rockgate Park. And he changed the name and began widely advertising it and operating it as a tourist attraction. Like before, if you were, kind of there in the area, you could come and Ed would give you a tour himself. But once this guy bought it, it kind of became what we think of it as today.
Tourist location.
Yeah, there you go. And in 1981, this guy sold the property to a holdings company that went by the name of Coral Castle Inc. And he sold it for $175,000, which would be a little over $600,000 in today's money, which, I mean, doesn't seem like a crazy amount of money for this thing to me, I mean, here in Raleigh, you can buy just like a totally normal house for $600,000, and I'd way rather have this thing. So.
Yeah, right? Dude, just to point this out, I don't know if you added this as part of the notes. Do you see this Polaris telescope?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
That points to the North Star?
Yeah, like, look at that, dude. Tell me that doesn't, again, seem reminiscent of all these ancient structures.
Like megalithic structures, yes. Yeah, exactly.
especially this, like... Look how precise that is.
Yeah, it's like all those like Mayan structures that can like tell the solstices and things like that. It's the same general idea.
Like it looks like on this picture, you're like looking through one hole to look through another hole that looks through another hole, which perfectly lines it up. Like, can you imagine how much time it took to drill these holes perfectly in that line?
Well, unless he had some sort of occult knowledge.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which is a perfect segue into thoughts and theories.
Magic.
Okay, so this kind of mystery of how Ed built this thing has persisted for decades now, as we've kind of talked about. So Ed was just over 5 feet tall and weighed roughly 120 pounds.
Holy
so he's a little guy. And, how was he able to construct all this himself when he worked mostly alone and mostly at night?
Look how tall they make him look in these pictures. I just want to point that out. Like, talk about some strategic placement of pictures. Like, that dude does not look like he's only 5 foot in that picture.
And I think that's actually like a cardboard cutout that's at Coral Castle. Like, if you go visit it, that previous picture that you had pulled up, you can take your picture with that thing. So I don't know if it's life size or not. It could be 6.5 feet tall, and he's just really flattering himself.
I mean, even in these pictures, that dude doesn't. Oh, maybe he does look like he's that short, but he doesn't at the same time. I don't know. Like,
well, I mean, even though people were like smaller back then, that's still like a very little person, you know?
Yeah, holy shit. That's like tiny, dude. That just brings, again, even more weirdness to this whole thing, because I've heard the story a million times, but I've never heard his size with the sake of it, because apparently people don't deem that as important information, but like, yeah, that just makes it even crazier, dude. Like, can you imagine a 120-pound person trying to lift even like something that's 100 pounds and not struggling?
Well, that's why some people speculate that he possessed some sort of occult knowledge that allowed him to like manipulate the Earth's magnetic energy and levitate the stone blocks.
Doesn't that sound like my UFO theory that I'm always throwing?
A little bit. And this, I think, is kind of interesting, and you'll like this tidbit. So allegedly, at one point, a group of local teenagers snuck onto the property one night, and one of them later claimed, quote, Ed caused the blocks of coral to move like hydrogen balloons. So whether that's just, kids playing around or there's anything to it, I don't know. But anyway, these kids claimed that.
Didn't these kids also claim that they heard like vibration and like humming and stuff like that? I remember hearing that as part of the story
like
too.
All the like underground humming that people hear. But kind of like all these more fantastical claims, Ed kind of played into them himself. And as we talked about a little bit, he had like a lot of unconventional theories on magnetism and things like that. And he believed that, quote, the animating force in the universe does not come from the protons and electrons in the atom, but rather from tiny magnets of different and opposite polarity that imbue all matter. And he also said that, quote, electricity is made up of two magnetic forces that move opposite each other in a double helix motion. And this, I think, is really cool. He claimed that he was able to construct a machine he called the perpetual motion holder. And allegedly, this machine was, quote, composed of two coiled wires, each having its own terminal and current, and connected to each other nose to tail in a circuit. This completed circuit allowed individual magnets to form into one of two currents, and the currents to chase each other in a never-ending loop. So that's a lot of word salad, but basically it's this guy had some like crazy ideas about magnetism and, the Earth's energy and things like that. And he allegedly like built this device that allowed him to manipulate these stones and place them. So do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, look at things through time that there's the generally believed idea of how things work. And then there's some heretic that starts throwing these crazy theories like, we're not the center of the universe. We're not this. And everybody for even like 100 years, 200 years after their death is like, this person's batshit fucking crazy. But then here it is, a couple hundred years later, we're looking back and we're like, wow, that person was right. And everybody else around them was crazy.
Yeah,
like,
what's the saying? Like yesterday's magic is today's technology, or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, that by that being said, I mean these may sound like some crazy theories, but maybe he was just ahead of his time as far as understanding goes, and it's just a matter of time before we get to a point where this stuff logically makes sense. But again, going back to that like occult knowledge concept, like I say this all the time on the show. I don't think the occult is what people think it is. I don't think it's this magic.
Not.
I think it's sciences that don't have specific names yet. So when you are privy to this occult knowledge, it's not like you have some piece of knowledge that you can manipulate like the universe necessarily, but rather you have a head start as far as building blocks go to understanding these principles because somebody's actually laying down the groundwork before you. It's kind of like how research works in mainstream, that there's all the people that come beforehand that build up to the research progresses as a whole. I think that's how this whole occult knowledge aspects work, is that there's all these occult sciences and research, and it's just a matter of it works fundamentally the same, that the next generation figures out more than the last generation figures out more than the next generation. So it's almost like this like fringe opposite of like what you believe like the mainstream sciences are, but clearly like their understanding of these sciences can kind of differ from like what we have an understanding of, because we always talk about this aspect of like, everything's technology, everything's, made with computer chips, with this, with that. This occult knowledge, again, they could have had an understanding of how to do things from a different way, like how to manipulate stone instead of knowing how to manipulate electricity. So, this may be lost knowledge, but it may be completely simple knowledge to somebody that understands it and their mind has been working in that way for a long time. Because it's kind of like that idea of like learning a new philosophy. if you're already set in stone this particular way, this whole idea,
I see what you did there.
yeah, isn't going to make any sense to you. But if you already have like a fundamental understanding of it, then again, this will make sense to you, but it won't make sense to anybody else. And so we're looking at this guy like he's crazy, but if it takes the right person with the right eyes, like everything he's saying can completely fucking make sense and connect something that they've been working on,
Well, and just on like a purely definition level, like a lot of people use occult to mean like devil worship or something spooky like that, when really that just means hidden. Occult knowledge means hidden knowledge. It's not necessarily something dark and scary and, malevolent. It's just something that's hidden for whatever reason. So that could be, something that people, like you said, once had this knowledge and it fell out of favor, or it's, knowledge that is going to be rediscovered. Who knows? But yeah, I just think as soon as you say the word occult, a lot of people just, start clutching their pearls, but it's not nearly as spooky an idea as a lot of people want to think.
That's what I'm always saying. Like, I think the main component of what we view as the occult, like in the aspect of the Illuminati and the Freemasons, is this master understanding of psychology mixed with philosophy, because that is a force to be reckoned with. Because if you can, one, manipulate somebody's philosophy on how they view the world, and on top of that, you're using these dark psychology tricks to manipulate the way that they perceive and do things, then that's just, that's almost like the fundamentals of like a cult starting. And I've thrown the ideas a million times about this, that you need coverage within people that think that they're part of this bigger mass. So if you have an understanding that what you're teaching is philosophy and psychology, but the people you're teaching it to don't understand that that's what you're teaching them, then they're viewing this thing like it's this satanic religion, when you actually know that you're just using sciences that they don't understand, but you're now blanketed behind this whole idea about, they're using magic, instead of actually somebody diving into the fact that they just have a master understanding of psychology and how to manipulate the human psyche, because it's just a coverage barrier for what they're actually doing, They'd rather have you think they're doing all this woo-woo devil worship than something that's a literal science that somebody could take home and do right now. Like, I think that's where the whole idea started in the first place, was you started off with this group that's like, all right, this is some knowledge that not everybody should have, because people can do some damage with this. And then as generations go on, those people start feeling elitist because they're privy to this knowledge that other people have. And then they turn into the monsters that they were trying to fight against in the first place. And they start using this stuff against people to do it in their aspect. And I think that's kind of where all this weird mucking of the water comes in with a lot of this like occult philosophy. But not to get off on a side tangent, but
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what does magic actually mean, But
misunderstood science.
Yeah. Hold that thought. We'll be back in a flash.
But if you guys don't like hearing the ads, then I have a solution for you. You can get ad-free and early access to this show and Inquiries of All Reality on the Open Minds Media Patreon for just $1 a month. That's less than a bag of chips, and it's a great way to support the show and all the hard work behind it. And if you're interested in merch store discounts or premium video versions of episodes, then there are a few other tiers with additional benefits and 7-day free trials available.
And now back to the show. So kind of jumping back in, it's also been speculated, and this is something that I didn't find a whole lot of information about, but that Ed used sound waves to move these blocks. And some article I read, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, it even said that he had like these strange cone-shaped objects that he used to like project these sound waves and move the stone. So take that with a grain of salt, but I thought it was kind of interesting and worth throwing in there. And of course, there's the more down-to-earth type theories that he just used like levers and wheels and axles and pulleys and ramps and wedges and things like that to construct the castle. And also, so despite this like claim that no one ever saw Ed work, there are actually like photographs and a few eyewitness accounts that show him like using pulleys and other like primitive tools to move these stone blocks, which, as we'll get into a little bit with like conclusions and miscellaneous, even if that's the case, I think it kind of misses the point. But, do you have anything else before we kind of start wrapping things up?
I mean, that's the hard part about this stuff that comes from the late 1800s, early 1900s is, one, you had this whole aspect of small town stories. So even diving into a lot of our cryptid research, man, like there could have been something small that happened, but everybody blew it into this thing that was way bigger than what it was because people wanted these stories because there wasn't much going on in these small towns. So they made them bigger than what they actually were. And even on the other side, like during this time was also when like the spiritual movement was happening where everybody was doing all these like, oh, I can talk to the dead. I can be a medium. I can do this. And everybody was trying to pull a curtain over everybody's eyes because things weren't as easily disproved back then. Like you had people like Houdini going around and trying to disprove every single charlatan. But on the flip side of it, like it's not like he can make it to everywhere with every single claim. So you had so many people doing these hoaxes without any way of people easily being able to prove they're a hoax because you didn't have like internet sleuths and shit. So essentially, I think that you have a lot of these stories that there could be something to them. There could be absolutely nothing to them, but they're always going to exist in this place of obscurity with the mindset in the back of your head that during the early 1900s, like people were purposely making these stories to do something interesting, you know?
Yeah, and I think kind of like we talked about with the Solway Firth Spaceman, a lot of this stuff can just very quickly kind of take on a life of its own, you know?
Yeah, they see one guy in here moving all these blocks, and I mean, he could have literally been using pulleys and just want to be left alone, but as soon as people started creating this story, I mean, there's a lot of people that just run with it, you know?
Well, yeah, and my understanding is like Ed really didn't do a whole lot himself to like promote this and try to gain notoriety. Yeah, like if people literally knocked on his door and gave him 10 cents or 25 cents when times got hard, he'd give them a tour, but it wasn't like he was like trying to make money off of this thing, you know?
I mean, in a weird way, though, I think that there might be a subconscious thing with that because at the end of the day, it's like everybody wants to leave some type of legacy, like whether you admit it or not, like every man, every woman, everybody, they want to be able to leave their impression on this world. And if he had this family history of, you know, stonework, all this type of stuff, I mean, essentially what this guy did, regardless of the stories and how he did it, he made his family name and himself like a piece of time that's always going to exist and always going to be talked about. So he made his mark and he made his legacy regardless of which way you look at it. At the end of the day, man, I mean, that's what everybody wants to do, man. They want to make their mark on history. So can't blame the guy regardless. If he just did something interesting and people want the stories, like it is what it is, man.
Even if it is a monument to his 16-year-old fiance.
I mean, that would explain the stars and the moon, right? It seems like a prepubescent bedroom, right?
Daddy chill.
Wait.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm out of control. I apologize for that.
All right. So kind of jumping back into miscellaneous and conclusions type stuff. So Coral Castle has been referred to as Florida's Stonehenge, which I thought was kind of fun.
Florida's Stonehenge.
Yeah. And in 1984, it was added to the National Register of Historic Places. Throughout the years, it's been featured on like numerous television programs, including Ancient Aliens, which is probably the first place I, came to know about this. But it was also on an episode of In Search Of back in the 80s, which was hosted by Leonard Nimoy, who is the original Dr. Spock. So that's kind of fun.
Live long and prosper, my friends.
There you go. So this is kind of funny too. So Billy Idol, like the rock star, nice day for a white wedding, that guy. So he
Start
had
again?
Yes. Yeah. So he had a 1986 album called Whiplash Smile, and it features a song titled Sweet 16. And this song was like actually inspired by like Ed and, the fiasco with his fiance and the construction of Coral Castle. And the music video for the song was actually filmed at Coral Castle itself. So, I mean, it's not a particularly good song. I listened to it just for research. But if you guys want to like just look up on YouTube the video for it, that'll give you kind of an idea of this place, which is kind of funny in and of itself.
Possible another weird occult tie here.
Yeah.
How many 70s and 80s bands have songs that reference a 16-year-old girl? Because you have Christine 16 by Kiss. That's just another example. Like
Kiss from your neck of the woods.
So, I mean, that being said, man, like obviously a lot of these old rock bands, regardless on their level of involvement, they definitely dived into the occult. Like clearly there's something with the number 16-year-old girl. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a Freemason archetype that we're looking at here that it's plainly in front of us. I just don't know like what the name of this archetype is, but there's I feel like there's something there with it, you know?
Well, maybe that's something you can dig in for one of your kind of what do you call your free flowing?
Oh, my weird research shows. Come with me on a journey of research shows.
There you go, a Shane Jones journey episode. So anyway, Coral Castle is also kind of regarded as like a paranormal hotspot, and it's been said that the big stone gate thing could be like a vortex and, quote, a major grid point of the planet. So kind of like a ley line type situation, which would go right into, Ed's ideas about magnetism and things like that. And it's also been said that, quote, people who are sensitive to electromagnetic energy fields will sometimes report headaches while standing inside the archway. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And there's also been several reports of like ghostly apparitions and disembodied voices and, quote, inexplicable movements around the complex, which has led some people to believe that Coral Castle is haunted by Ed's ghost, even though he died at the hospital and not at the actual castle.
Just to throw this in here as an additional thing, the esoteric meaning of the number 16 indicates you have recently acquired new knowledge and face a decision. You will need to call upon qualities such as strength and self-control. In the case of addiction, the 16 will appear if you have taken the decision to quit. The 16th card of the tarot, for example, is the Tower, which means the breaking down of old forms. Although the imagery looks like a disaster scene, the Tower is actually a great card to pull in a tarot reading as it signifies a change in your life.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that seems, like I said, there's something there, man.
I mean, especially in light of, Ed started all of this after he got his heart broken and he came back and then built a monument or a tower, if you will. So, yeah, I think there's definitely something to unpack there. And it kind of goes back to the idea that, this 16 has a larger meaning in his research and not just his fiance. But anyway, what were you going to say?
In gematria, the esoteric meaning of the number 16 shares corresponding with the symbolic meaning of the number 7. There is a divine number of mother goddesses which bears a resemblance to Binya in the Kabbalah tree of life. This gives us a clue that 7 and thus the 16 relates to the accusation of knowledge. Again, going back to that and talking about this idea of a mother goddess, which again goes into this 16-year-old female archetype thing going on. Like, I think that
discovering knowledge.
It's a symbolic thing that people are using this 16 maybe to basically say that, like, I've acquired a new piece of knowledge, like maybe come and question me. And if people have this idea that they're seeing this 16 symbology, it's basically a calling card. It's almost seems like it could be used as a calling card. I'm just making a claim here. I don't know if this is true or not, but it seems like it could be a calling card to other people that are aware of the occult to say that I've acquired something new. Come ask me about it.
Well, and that kind of fits in with some of the thoughts and speculation that we've talked about tonight. So, yeah, I think you're definitely, if not onto something, it's interesting to think about in light of all this,
Gotta always leave the Google up, man. You never know what little side tangents you might end up diving into, man. But once it's one of those things. It's pattern recognition, man. You see 16 enough and you start questioning stuff. And then it's not even just like, oh, these people aren't related. Like Kiss, very occult. Billy Idol, very occult. This guy clearly has some type of weird occult ties.
Last name is Idol.
Exactly. Yep. And he has the completely like white hair, which is like this other symbolic thing. Like, dude, there's regardless of the level of understanding that they may have with the occult, like a lot of these rock stars and stuff have some type of knowledge of the occult, even if they're not necessarily in the group,
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those chicken and egg situations. Like there's some people like, we talked about Jimmy Page, like literally buying Aleister Crowley's mansion. Like there's some people that I think are absolutely like in the know and actively engage in this type of stuff. And then I think there's probably other people that are like, oh, this is just like the cool thing that rock stars do. And, they're probably more passive in the whole thing. It's kind of like we talk about with Freemasons or anything like that. Like, it's like a club within a club type situation. 90% of them aren't up to anything nefarious, but you got, that 10% upper echelon that might be doing some shit. So
see, to flip this into another more real world thing, talking about musicians. So everybody thinks again of like occult musicians being these like Satan worshipers, all this type of stuff. What if that's not the case at all? It's just a matter of, again, going back into psychology, that they know that there's these certain vibrational patterns or certain frequencies that they can play that will draw people to them. So you see that there's these, like, how do these people get so famous so quick? Maybe it's, again, an understanding of psychology that they know how to put these certain frequencies together that will literally like draw people to it. So people can't help but, because that's usually what happens with these songs. It's like, you'll hate the song, but it'll get stuck in your head. Like there's something to it. And I think that that's where the occult knowledge comes in with these musicians, is that they understand what sounds and frequencies will almost get people addicted to hearing those sounds and frequencies.
And to not just go totally off the top rope with this, but
a lot of glory.
Sorry. Okay. Wrestling reference.
A lot of, these bands, once they get big music label backing, there's a lot you can dig into with music labels and the mechanisms behind them and things of that nature. So, even if the artists themselves aren't privy to a lot of this stuff, the powers that be and the people that are pulling the strings probably most definitely are,
And actually, I had John Gusty from the Red Pill Revolution on Inquiries recently, and he's worked behind the scene for the music industry. And he was talking about this whole concept that basically, like, a person becomes famous, and then that name, that person, that identity becomes like a trademark, meaning that, like, you're paying to see Taylor Swift, for example. This is what he was saying. And Taylor Swift has multiple people that look just like Taylor Swift. So you're not paying to see the Taylor Swift. You're paying to see the archetype of Taylor Swift. Because he's even said that he has a friend who will take these recordings of live concerts, and for Taylor Swift in particular, and a couple of them, he pointed out this effect that if somebody's actually singing, every single time they record the song, it's going to be a hair bit different. There's going to be a little bit of vocal range changes. Like, it's never going to be exactly the same. But this other person that's researching has found that a bunch of these like artists that are doing these big concerts for 10 different cities, he can put the sound waves next to each other and they're exactly the same. And then when you start looking at the people, you start noticing these weird differences. Like, for example, like the Biden thing with the detached earlobes, you'll notice little things like that. So it's this whole idea that, like, one, it becomes this archetype of a person. It's not the person anymore. So that can easily be controlled by the label, because you're essentially selling your character to that label, and then you can walk away from that at any time, and they're going to keep still filling that role. So with that, of course, you use this occult psychology to keep people wanting to see this character, and it becomes this, again, this money addiction almost, where it's like, people are going to hear this beat, they're going to love it, it's going to get stuck in their head, they're going to buy this next album, they're going to buy this next album, and it's almost like an addiction to this like dopamine hit from hearing these particular frequencies, for example. But weird thing to think about, man, like the whole like archetype of a musician existing, because it's like bands are bands, but like these single idol people, it goes into, again, this whole other idea of this like occult worship idolizing concept. So when you get into that aspect, it almost makes sense that it wouldn't be necessarily a person anymore, but rather like an archetype, an idea, rather than a specific person at that point,
Well, wasn't it Steve Jobs that said something like, if you want to get famous and rich, sell an idea? Like, Apple is not selling phones and laptops, they're selling an idea. It's kind of the same concept,
Yeah, I mean, because that's usually like what the X factor is to a lot of these musicians and stuff. It's just like they have a personality that people like, and it's a unique personality. But once that personality's been created, like any actor can go in and fill that personality at that point, because they've had enough being able to like watch the person just being themselves. Like, it's not that hard to fill the shoes of somebody once that person, that authentic person exists. Like, it's not hard to impersonate them.
Especially when you're, looking at them in a football stadium from hundreds of yards away.
And shit, man, we're probably only a couple years away from full fucking hologram concerts, The band won't even have to be in the venue. They can be at home standing in one of those little light boxes just rocking out, and then they go down and sit on their couch and they're done with the concert, Like, fuck.
Well, I'm sure Ticketmaster will still find a way to bend us over a barrel for those tickets. So.
Oh, yeah, $10,000 and you can watch a VR concert of Taylor Swift.
Sign me up. All right,
Eras 2.
All right, guys, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. And now we're getting back to the bazaar. Kind of jumping back in and closing things out. So some people have said that, Ed's experience with the logging industry and stonemasonry kind of explain how he was able to make all these monuments and construct Coral Castle. But like I've kind of alluded to and we've talked about, I think that really misses the point of all this. Even if, and let's just say if Ed didn't have any type of occult knowledge or supernatural abilities or anything like that, it's still fucking incredible that this guy was able to build this thing. Even if he did just do it with pulleys and simple tools and technology, that's a crazy fucking feat of construction and engineering. I mean, like we talked about, it took 6 men and a crane to repair this gate that this guy built himself. So, I mean, either he did have some sort of knowledge or skills or something, or he was a construction genius. I mean, those are basically the only two options. And at some point, it's which one is easier to believe. And to me, I kind of err on the side of it's easier for me to believe that he had a little something that at least helped him do this. I mean, I feel like you're kind of on the same page with that just from our conversation so far, but it just seems impossible to me that in the 20s, this 5 foot, 120 pound guy was able to build all these structures. So what do you think, Shane?
This dude clearly made an army of homunculi, and he was using them like Oompa Loompas or like the dwarves. And the humming that people were hearing was actually the homunculi just humming away the tunes. Just
homunculi work songs?
Yeah, homunculi work songs. See, we don't understand it because we're not homunculi. So we think it's just this constant frequency vibration, but that's literally a song in homunculi.
Hey, who else supposedly had a homunculi that we haven't talked about in a little bit?
Aleister Crowley.
Our boy, Jack fucking Parsons.
Of course. What a magical fiasco.
Man, Coral Castle, just a magical fiasco.
But getting into a little bit more real world, what my explanation would be of this is kind of along the lines of the same thing that you were saying, that regardless of if he was doing anything crazy or not, this is definitely a fascinating human interest story, and this guy definitely did something fascinating. And regardless of what your idea or anybody's idea of what occult knowledge is, my assumption would be that he was privy to some type of very simple technology or idea that was passed down from his family that seems like this crazy mystery to us, but it's probably extremely fucking simple. And it literally would explain
old Eastern European stone, possibly Freemason something. It might not have to be something as crazy as some otherworldly technology, but yeah, like you said, I think this guy had to have some sort of something in his back pocket, but what that thing is, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of my view. I mean, I definitely get into a little bit more of, it's probably a little bit more explained now than it would have been back in the day. This whole idea of astrophysics, frequency, vibration, even the whole concept of the ether was just really getting started to talk about it in science aspects, back around the early 1900s. So, I mean, I definitely think that there's this unexplained technology aspect to this, and not to get too crazy woo-woo with it, but I honestly think that regardless of if this was done, I think that maybe he could have used it, but the whole idea about using the Earth's magnetic frequencies to basically manipulate things to move how you need them to. And this has always been my theory with UFOs, is that if you get into the whole idea that these things aren't actually coming from space, maybe the reason they're able to travel zero gravity is because they're basically just working how magnets work when they're opposites of each other. So if this guy figured out this idea, I mean, fuck, dude, the whole UFO technology, you're making this little ship, quick turn, pinpoints, boom, 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 everywhere. And, it's just... I think that there's something to it. I mean, diving into even the Egyptian aspect of it and the fact that he had references to all of the Egyptian stuff, there's this whole thing with scarabs that gets into even this other weird occult philosophy about how these specific types of beetles would fly. And they would talk about how they would basically use something that was here already that we didn't have an understanding of to basically be able to float on top of, which kind of gets into the ether concept. So I think that it's like one of those technologies that's
interrupt you, but like, isn't there like something with like a scarab or a beetle, like physically should not be able to fly or something like that?
Yeah, they're too heavy to be able to fly. So that's where the whole like idea comes in, that they're actually floating on top of something, almost like how a fish does, which again gets into this whole like ether concept. But
and that even gets back to like radio waves and things like that, which we talk about all the time, you know?
And I mean,
and
even
like
at that point,
and stuff like that, like John Keel type stuff.
I mean, even just to bring in another theory on this, I mean, if theoretically there are these vibrations that are constantly flowing through this, whatever you want to call it, the ether, if you were able to figure out what frequency or vibration that thing was on, maybe something can simply just vibrate to sit on top of it. It almost kind of feels like that same thing with when you play certain vibrations and frequencies at like sand, that it'll turn into like certain like specific shapes and everything. Maybe those certain specific shapes are almost like showing these like manipulatable like energy fields. And if you find a way to basically like mirror that field rather than it falling through it, it'll sit on top of it, because they're basically taking up this same like frequency plane that one can't pass through each other because they're existing on top of each other. Like, this whole concept that I'm trying to explain is like something that's like beyond my area of expertise to be able to try to explain, but hopefully I'm kind of somewhat explaining it somewhat rationally here.
But it kind of, in a roundabout way, gets back to what Ed said, that, you know, it's not about protons and electrons, it's about magnets, man. Like, have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah, of course.
We should have added the Jesse Pinkman's like magnets, bitch. We should have added that to the soundboard. That would have been perfect for this one. But
I'm going to throw in one right here.
Yeah, bitch! Magnets! Oh!
Just for the sake of it, in the post.
But yeah, no, I think you're definitely onto something. I mean, that's kind of...
Even within energy, though, there's a thing with magnets, because, I mean, how do you create energy? You basically take a magnet, you wrap it in other things, and then it basically will create this, like, reoccurring current. So it's like, even within, like, electrical understanding of this shit and frequency and everything, it all goes back to magnetics. I mean...
Yeah. So maybe this guy was just a genius when it came to magnets. Who knows? He was Jesse Pinkman before Jesse Pinkman.
He just saw it from a different perspective, because that's what I think a lot of this stuff is everybody is pushed into thinking this particular way, and there's just one person who can just... It's kind of like the same idea that, like, you're working on a project and everybody's staring at it and they can't figure it out. And then the one guy walks up who has no context of the project and can go, why isn't that right there? And then everybody's like, holy fuck, it was that simple? Like, I think it's something like that it's just like, we're all looking at it this one way, so we can't see it because we don't have the right set of eyes. So this other guy walks up who just thinks a little bit differently than the average person, and he sees this answer that's just right in front of him that nobody else can see, just because he has a different context and set of eyes on this thing. Like, I feel like it's that simple, you know, like, it's just something that's just, it's been sitting at the tip of everybody's tongue, but it's just like, we don't think that way, so we haven't gotten to the rational explanation to bring it to that point, you know? Like, you just need, like, a fresh mind to come and look at it and actually be willing to give the information out that they give, because everybody that gets this shit, they keep it so fine under lock and key that nobody gets anything of it. But, again, with good reason, because what happened to fucking Tesla, for example, that was diving into this stuff, second he died, U.S. government rushes in and takes everything. Like, because clearly there's something to this.
Yeah, so I mean, Ed's ideas on magnetism and things like that, yeah, maybe we should look into that a little bit more. His ideas on women and young girls and
not so much.
You know, fucking their mother to purify them. Maybe we should just leave that in the 1920s. But
I wonder if he has a reference to 3, 6, and 9, just out of like curiosity in his magnetism book. I gotta buy this book and I gotta look through it. If there is any reference to 3, 6, and 9, dude, there's definitely a cross between the Tesla stuff and what he was doing.
Well, if you buy it and kind of go through it and find anything good, we'll have to do like a follow up to this, maybe in Bizarre Inquiries or something like that.
The good news is when I brought up the book cover, it said Amazon $5.99. So
there you go.
Can't go wrong with the $5.99 book.
I don't think it's probably very long. They said it was a pamphlet, so you can probably have that knocked out.
But in all fairness, dude, there is some amazing information in those pamphlets, because I don't know if you've dived into like Manly P. Hall, but like some of his best information wasn't in like the secret teachings like everybody tries to grab, but is just weird off the wall little pamphlets, dude. Like I got one that talks about this whole like aura and magnetic frequencies coming off of people, dude. And it dives into all this shit.
Magnets, bitch.
It's fucking magnets, bitch. Like,
yeah.
The little pamphlets always have like the best information, man. Cause I don't know, man.
It's just distilled down to just the very information you need. I mean, no reason to have a 400-page book when you could have a 10-page pamphlet.
Yeah, clearly, man. Like we're looking at, if you start diving into a lot of this like early 1900s occult stuff and just start adding the context of magnetism, I wonder how far you might actually get.
Well, maybe that's something we can kind of look into in a future episode. But
I'm going to have to go through a Manly P. Hall book and just replace certain words with the term magnet and magnetism and see how much sense it might actually make.
Magnets, bitch.
Magnets, bitch.
Stay tuned, guys. This is our last break.
But if you guys enjoyed this show and think we deserve it, please leave a review or rating for the show on iTunes or Spotify or any other podcatcher you use. Your continued support is what makes this show possible, and your opinions go a long way to help the show grow and improve. So thank you guys. Now feel free to skip past these ads so we can get back to the show.
And now we're getting back to the bazaar. But no, that's basically all I got for this one. I think this is kind of a fun one to talk about. It's something a little bit different than we normally talk about. It's not cryptids or aliens. Even though it does kind of skirt with some kind of esoteric occult things, it's not, super duper heavy into that stuff. So I think it was a nice little change of pace, a little more lighthearted one. But yeah, that's basically all I got for this one. So
I mean, I will say though that as this show has progressed, and just like any project, man, like things start to kind of take on a different light, and it still kind of fits in the name. But like, as far as our research,
definitely bizarre.
Yeah, it's definitely a bizarre encounter to experience this thing. Like everything that we've been diving into lately still fits the name of like what we're diving into, but it's kind of like growth of a person, man. Like the show does the same thing. Realistically, what we're doing with this podcast is essentially making a medium so that we can research things and other people are able to hear it. So, of course, as you have more of an understanding, research is going to change and progress. So, a lot of this stuff we may not have dived into a year ago, but where we're going with our research, it all connects in full circle because once you start diving into this stuff, you realize, again, like we've mentioned a million times on the show, that it's all connected. So, honestly, man, like I like where the show's going, that we're not just specifically diving into cryptids, but rather just bizarre things in general. Like, this is why I was saying a long time ago, man, like bizarre definitely fits the show because everything we dive into is definitely bizarre and is intriguing. And again, it's weird how we'll research something off the wall like this, and I guarantee you we'll do something 3 episodes from now that's completely unrelated, and we'll find these connecting pieces. Because that's just the research,
yeah,
man.
It always happens. I mean, and especially where you least expect it to pop up. But
like bizarre inquiries, for example.
Yeah, you can only talk about cryptids and aliens so much. So I think it's kind of fun to look into kind of this more obscure stuff, like the Solway Firth Spaceman. Like that was such a fun one to do, just because it was something so different than what we normally talk about. But anyway, I feel like I've rambled on.
I will say though
tonight
that with that, of course. What you were saying, if anybody out there, any listeners or anything, has anything that's, kind of along this field that you guys might be interested in us covering, or if you guys have any like weird local stories or anything
more
like that,
folklore-y type stuff,
throw them our way, man, because we'd absolutely love to dive into them because, it's with a lot of these podcasts, you'll see a lot of the stuff get talked about on a lot of the same shows. So, it's kind of nice to kind of dive into a little bit more of the obscure stuff. So we're always more than happy to take suggestions for obscure stuff to dive into. So, don't hesitate to shoot us a message and throw us some other, weird little local folklore things that you've heard about. Because who knows where they might end up leading, man. You throw us something like Coral Castle or some other weird little local tourist trap, and who knows where the hell we might end up going with it, And with that, if you guys enjoyed today's conversation and want to show some love, smash that follow icon and share today's episode with a friend. Grassroots support from listeners like you guys is exactly how this show grows. So thank you.
And if anybody wants to get up with us for any reason whatsoever, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
You guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys get a hold of us through social media. Instagram and Facebook, of course, are the ones that we are the most active on. Or you guys can also get a hold of us on the submission form, which is available off of our link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of us is through our hotline number. And you guys can text or call that, whatever is easier for you guys. And that number is 364-1551. And if you guys missed that, that is available down in the show description.
And you guys be sure to show some love to our friends and sponsors of the show. We've got our buddies Rick and Hans with I Know Squatch for all your squatchy gear needs. We've got our buddy Dave, a.k.a. the Snarly Yow, with Snarly Yow Natural Products. He's got some beard oil, he's got body wash, and he also puts on some kick-ass events. So definitely check him out. We've got Joe with Cryptoteology for all your wearable cryptids. We've also got Big Ape Threads.
And if you guys also have a chance, don't forget to check out our friends with affiliate links, Dimension Devices, for all of your fascinating paranormal investigating devices. You guys can also check out Oregon-ite, and you guys can check out some Sticker Mule if you guys want to pick up some merch for your podcast or get some t-shirts printed, whatever you guys want to do. And there, of course, is additional discounts and credits available, which are all available down in the show description, so you guys can find those quick and easy.
And as always, all this shit is mentioned in the link tree in the show description.
And just like today's show and all of the weird stuff that we've been diving into lately, the spectrum of what the bizarre is has definitely shifted, but we always, always remain and will always stay bizarre. Bizarre.
Stop fucking 16-year-old girls.
Daddy, chill.
In my moment of...
Fuck, hit all the wrong ones. Redo that end part.
Was that the Macho Man Randy Savage?
Yeah, I hit the wrong one. Let me redo that end part.
He supposedly fucked his boss's 16-year-old daughter, so it's very apt.
It's still
we should just leave the whole thing in.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it in there. And just for the sake of it, I'm gonna hit the one that I want to hit the end because fuck it, the show should end with this.
Call!